My name is Callie Brenner. I'm 7 years old, and last fall I got married in a place most people wouldn't call beautiful. Not unless you saw it the way I did through the eyes of someone who needed that one seat by the window, filled no matter what the room looked like. It started with a phone call from Willow Glen Care Home. That's where my grandmother Evelyn Brenner had lived for the past 2 years. She was 89, small as a bird, and twice as fierce. Once she illustrated children's books for a living before arthritis took her hands and cancer took her breath. But she still had her eyes. And those eyes, they lit up like sunrise whenever she talked about my wedding. Not the wedding, my wedding. She'd ask about the colors, the music, the menu. But mostly she asked one thing over and over. Will I be there, sweetheart? And I would always answer, I wouldn't do it without you, Grandma. The problem was we were planning a vineyard ceremony an hour away from Portland. My fiancé Daniel had a connection through his theater company, a gorgeous estate surrounded by hills, archways, and even a little stream. The kind of place that looks good in photos. The kind of place people post about. But after Grandma's 3rd hospital stay that month, the doctor pulled me aside and told me gently that Evelyn didn't have vineyard stamina. If you want her to witness your wedding, he said, you'll need to bring it to her. I sat in my car outside Willow Glen for almost 20 minutes. No music, no tears, just silence. I thought about the place where Daniel first asked me to marry him, a broken-down stage half-lit during a rehearsal. There were wires everywhere and mismatched curtains. But I said yes without hesitation because the beauty wasn't in the surroundings. It was in his eyes. So I made the call. I called Daniel first. I want to get married at Willow Glen. He didn't pause. Say the date. I'll be there. Then I called my mom. That call went differently. She paused. Then said, a nursing home, Callie, that's no. You're not serious. I am. People will talk. It's God, it's depressing. Not to Grandma. You've already sent out invites for a vineyard wedding. What do you expect me to tell people that we love someone enough to put her first? She hung up before I could finish. 2 hours later, my older brother Liam texted me, saw Mom's post. Please tell me this isn't real. And by post, I found out she meant the one where she shared a stock photo of a bleak hospital corridor with the caption, plans change. Some people prefer tragedy to tradition. No names. But she didn't need names. That night I visited Grandma. She was in her usual chair by the window, a cup of peppermint tea warming her hands. Callie, she said, you look like you're carrying something heavy. I am, but I'm here to set it down. I knelt beside her and said it quietly, like it was just between us and the leaves outside. We're moving the wedding here, Grandma. You'll be there, in the front row, just like you wanted. She didn't cry. She just closed her eyes and nodded. That seat's been waiting for me. I woke up the next morning to 23 text messages, not from friends, from people I hadn't spoken to in months, a second cousin, an old high school classmate, even the woman who used to run the church bake sale. All of them had one thing in common, my mother's Facebook post. She'd updated it overnight, this time with more than just a stock photo. Sad to watch a young woman throw away her once-in-a-lifetime moment. Weddings are about love, yes, but also about dignity, about doing it right. I raised my daughter better. She hadn't tagged me, but she'd made the post public. The comment section was brutal. Some defended her. You're right, a care home? That's no place for a wedding. Others were worse. She probably can't afford a real venue. And then there was Liam, my brother. He'd left a comment with a laughing emoji and 2 words, pity parade. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Daniel made us both coffee and slid mine across the counter without saying anything. I knew he'd seen it. You okay? He asked. I nodded, but it was a lie. 2 hours later, the group text arrived. My mom had started it. She added Liam, 2 aunts, and me. Subject about the wedding. She opened with the phrase she always used before trying to control something. This comes from a place of love. And then came the flood. Liam, no one's saying Grandma doesn't matter, but we have reputations too. You want to say vows next to a bedpan. Aunt Elaine, Willow Glen smells like soup and bleach. Be reasonable, Callie. Mom. We're planning a dinner Sunday. Just us. Let's talk this through in person. No one asked what Daniel thought. No one asked how I felt. But I agreed to come. I needed to look them in the eye. Sunday dinner used to mean something in our family. Pot roast, mashed potatoes, and everyone talking over each other. This time it felt like walking into a tribunal. The table was already set when we arrived. But there were printed packets at each seat. Wedding Alternatives read the title. Liam had a PowerPoint loaded on the TV. My mom had a clipboard. This isn't an ambush, she started. It's a solution. Sure doesn't feel like one, Daniel muttered. Liam clicked through slides, venues with rustic charm, locations near medical centers. Sample photo shoots in non-institutional settings. I looked at them. They had planned this. What exactly do you think this is? I asked. Damage control, Liam said flatly. Public perception matters, Mom added. You're a designer. You know images tell stories. What story are you telling with a wheelchair in your first dance? I laughed. I didn't mean to, but it came out sharp. You think this is about aesthetics? It's about legacy, she snapped. When people ask me about your wedding, what do you want me to say? That my daughter couldn't wait to tie the knot in a hallway next to a defibrillator, Daniel stood. This is disgusting, but I didn't stand. I was frozen. You raised me to do the right thing, I said. That's what I'm doing. Liam shook his head. You'll regret it. You'll be the punchline of your own wedding. That night, as Daniel drove us home, my phone buzzed again. Someone had sent me a screenshot. Liam's Instagram story. Photo: a dusty hallway with faded wallpaper and a single folding chair. Caption: the aisle awaits. Bring your tissues. And maybe hand sanitizer. The reactions were all laughing faces. None of them knew it was my wedding they were mocking. But the worst part wasn't the post. It was the fact that my family knew exactly what they were doing and they didn't care. They weren't just mocking the venue. They were mocking the woman who made me. Tuesday evening, my cousin Emily sent me a message that started with, "You probably weren't supposed to see this." It included 6 blurry screenshots. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at, a bunch of text bubbles in a group chat I wasn't part of. But the names were all too familiar. Liam, Mom, Aunt Elaine, Cousin Bryce, Uncle Marvin, even my old piano teacher somehow. The group was titled Wedding SOS, Family Only. The first post was from Liam 2 weeks earlier. Mom, Callie's going off script. If we let this thing happen at Willow Glen, we'll never live it down. Need strategy. Then Elaine chimed in, suggest venues that feel inclusive. We have to give her the illusion of choice. Mom replied, I've already started laying groundwork online. A few subtle posts, no names. Bryce, if she insists on this grandma fest, maybe we start floating the idea that she's overwhelmed, not thinking straight. I scrolled in disbelief. They weren't just annoyed. They weren't just embarrassed. They were organizing a campaign against me. There were jokes, too. Liam had posted a meme of a wedding cake shaped like a walker. Caption, coming soon to a hallway near you. My stomach clenched. I'd expected resistance, but I hadn't expected calculated humiliation. Daniel found me sitting on the kitchen floor with the phone in my lap, the screenshots still glowing. What happened? They're staging a PR war, I whispered. He read the messages, quiet at first. Then he threw his phone against the couch. Enough. You don't owe them a single chair at that wedding. I nodded, but my hands were shaking. I wasn't sad. Not really. I was angry, and underneath that, hurt beyond language. Because they weren't just mocking the venue. They were mocking my love, my choice. My promise to the woman who'd raised me when my dad left. And my mom needed space. That night I didn't sleep. I sat by my work desk, the one covered in handmade paper swatches and fountain pens, and tried to sketch a new wedding invitation. I kept writing one line over and over, she'll be in the front row. But the next morning, for the first time since I made the decision to move the wedding, I hesitated. Maybe they were right. Maybe it was all too strange, too public, too far from how it's done. Maybe I was the one breaking something sacred. I didn't say anything to Daniel. I just avoided eye contact, busying myself with calls to the florist and photographer, pretending I wasn't wondering whether 80-year-old wallpaper would ruin our first kiss photos. At noon, a message came in from Willow Glen. "Hey, Callie, Evelyn's been sketching again." Attached was a photo. It was Grandma's hand, curled and stiff with arthritis, clutching a colored pencil. She'd drawn a little girl standing in front of a treehouse wearing a veil made of leaves. My eyes filled with tears. The caption said, "My Callie always finding magic where no one else looks." I put my phone down and laughed through the ache. Because they didn't get it. Not a single one of them. But she did. And for that reason alone, the wedding would go on, even if only one seat in the whole room truly mattered. It was Thursday when I found Grandma Evelyn sitting outside in the Willow Glen garden, bundled in her sky blue cardigan, a wool blanket draped over her lap. Fall had just begun to blush the trees gold above brittle brown below. She didn't hear me approach. She was watching a monarch butterfly land on the empty chair beside her. "He's early," she said without turning. "Who?" I asked, settling into the chair. "The butterfly. Last time he came on the morning of your grandfather's funeral." Her voice wasn't sad, just clear, like rain falling on glass. We sat like that for a minute, me, her, the butterfly. Then I pulled a small envelope from my bag. Inside was the new invitation I'd made, hand-lettered, minimal, on textured cream paper. The only color was a tiny hand-painted illustration of two chairs side by side under a string of lights. I handed it to her. "No RSVP required," I said. She smiled. "About time someone designed something for me." I hesitated, then asked Grandma, "Can I ask about your wedding?" She looked toward the pond. "We got married in a barn," she said, "on a Tuesday during a ration strike. Seriously, dead serious. Your grandfather wore borrowed shoes. My bouquet was wildflowers and weeds." She paused. "People called it low class. Said we should wait for something better. But we didn't want better. We wanted now. And now, sweetheart, is the only time love ever truly lives." I bit my lip. What if I'm being selfish?" I asked. "Selfish? How? What if this wedding ruins everything for Daniel? What if we start our life with people laughing?" Grandma turned to me, her eyes sharp. "Then let them laugh. They'll laugh and forget. But you'll remember that you put love first. And Daniel, if he's who I think he is, then this isn't a detour, it's the destination." The butterfly lifted off, circled once, and disappeared beyond the hedges. She leaned over and squeezed my hand. "Do you know what makes a wedding unforgettable? A perfect dress," I guessed. "No. A moment that can't happen twice. That's what this is." She tapped the invitation gently. "You're not ruining anything, Callie. You're rescuing something. Something the rest of them forgot long ago." I looked down at the paper in her lap. The two chairs, the string lights. She would be there. And the story we wrote that day. It wouldn't just be for us. It would be for the little girl who grew up with leaf veils and tree houses. It would be for the old woman who still drew with trembling hands. It would be for anyone who ever traded perfect for real. That night, I called the florist and asked her to add milkweed to the bouquet. When she asked why, I said for butterflies. Some of them show up early and stay just long enough to change everything. It was the kind of Saturday morning that holds its breath. The sky over Portland was muted pewter, the air still, like the city was waiting to see what would happen. Daniel and I arrived at Willow Glen by 9 a.m. Janet, the activities coordinator, was already there with a cart full of battery-operated fairy lights, mason jars, and ribbons. "We've had 3 birthday parties and a square dance in this room," she said cheerfully, "but nothing quite like a wedding." The community hall didn't smell like bleach that day. It smelled like fresh lavender and vanilla cookies. Residents passed by in wheelchairs and walkers offering warm congratulations. "And you look radiant, dear." A few of them wore Sunday best, even though it was Saturday. One gentleman had on a bow tie and Crocs. I changed in the small art therapy room alone. No bridal party, no mirror wall. Just me, a hand mirror, and a simple off-white dress I'd hemmed myself. At 10:52, Daniel knocked softly on the door. "Are you ready? I've never been more." At exactly 11 o'clock, the lights in the room dimmed and Janet cued the Bluetooth speaker. Instead of the wedding march, we chose something softer. A song Daniel had composed himself played on guitar. Grandma sat front row in a wheelchair with her cardigan folded perfectly on her lap. She wore a brooch that looked like a monarch butterfly. I walked down the aisle slowly, but not because I was nervous. I wanted to absorb every detail. The string lights glowed overhead like low-hanging stars. Dried flower petals lined the aisle. Daniel stood beneath an arch made from salvaged window frames we painted together in our garage. When we reached the front, he took my hands and whispered, "You found the most beautiful venue in the world." The ceremony was brief. We exchanged vows we wrote ourselves. He promised to choose presence over perfection. I promised to choose love over legacy. But the moment that stopped time happened near the end. Just after the kiss, someone gasped. I turned and saw Grandma. She was clapping slow, deliberate, her face radiant. Then something magical happened. All the residents clapped with her, then the staff, then our few guests. It wasn't polite applause. It was joy. Raw, unfiltered, collective. The kind you only hear when people have lived enough to know what matters. Someone I didn't even see who lifted their phone and snapped a photo. In it, Daniel and I are facing each other, fairy lights circling above flower petals frozen in the air from someone's toss. And behind us, just slightly out of focus, is Grandma hands mid-clap her brooch, catching a glint of light, smiling like the moment had made her young again. Later, we cut a pie instead of a cake. Guests signed a handmade quilt instead of a guest book. We danced once to silence, holding each other with nothing but the heartbeat of the room behind us. It was imperfect. It was unplanned. It was ours. And by sunset, the photo had already begun its quiet journey into the world. It started with a ping, then another, and then another. By 7:24 a.m. the morning after the wedding, I had over 70 notifications. I blinked at my phone, still in my pajamas, still tangled in the afterglow of the night before. I thought it was extended family texting congratulations, or maybe Daniel had posted one of the photos. But when I opened Instagram, I froze. It wasn't our post. It was Marcus, a photographer friend of Daniel's, who'd attended as both guest and last-minute documentarian. He'd uploaded a single photo late last night. No hashtags, no caption, just the image, the moment. Daniel and I mid-laugh, holding hands under the soft string lights, petals in the air like falling stars. And Grandma Evelyn behind us, mid-clap brooch glittering like a sunburst on her cardigan. She wasn't just smiling, she was beaming as if that clap was carrying the whole moment on its back. Someone, a stranger, had shared it. Then another. By 9:00 a.m., it had been reposted over 10,000 times. The comments were overwhelming. This is what weddings should be. Forget luxury. This is love. My grandma died before mine. Wish I'd thought of this. I'm sobbing at this woman's joy. Whoever you are, thank you for reminding us what matters. A tweet with the photo read, "Not a venue, not a trend, just a granddaughter who kept a promise. Ata love over legacy." By noon, it hit the front page of Reddit. By 3 p.m., I got an email from a producer at the Morning Current asking if Daniel and I would be open to an interview. Then came the message from my mother, "Mom, what is happening? Why are people sharing this everywhere?" Me, because it was beautiful. "Mom, you need to take it down. It's gone too far." Me, I didn't post it. "Mom, tell them to delete it. The story is twisting. People are saying I didn't come to your wedding." Me, "You didn't, Mom. We need to talk." A minute later, Liam called. I let it ring. He left a voicemail. "Callie, we need to get ahead of this. There's a wedding blog calling you the girl who chose the care home over the ballroom. They're asking why the family wasn't present in photos. This is getting embarrassing. Embarrassing." The word echoed like a mosquito in a jar. Funny how quickly people shift from mocking you for doing something real to begging you to erase the proof that they didn't stand beside you. Daniel came in with 2 mugs of coffee and his phone in hand. BuzzFeed wants to run the story. Let them. Think they'll call it the nursing home wedding that broke the internet. Only if they're smart. We sat together in silence watching as the numbers climbed, the likes, the shares, the private messages from people with tears in their words and ache in their stories. One message stood out. I haven't seen my grandfather in 6 months. I'm booking a flight now. Thank you. Daniel looked at me. Still wish it had been at the vineyard, no, I said, smiling through my tears. This way. Everyone saw her, really saw her, for who she was. Outside, the leaves had begun to fall, but inside that photo, Grandma Evelyn would forever be caught mid-clap. Alive, radiant, and unignorable. They didn't knock. That was the first thing I noticed. I heard the car pull up too quiet, like it didn't want to be there. Then footsteps, slow, hesitant, not angry, not proud, just reluctant. I opened the front door before they reached it. Mom flinched like she hadn't expected me to actually be home. Liam stood behind her, eyes fixed on the ground like it had something interesting to say. She wore her good pearls, not the expensive ones, the appropriate ones. The ones she wore when apologizing to bank managers or old friends she hadn't meant to offend. Callie, she began. We've been seeing things. Yes, I said. A lot of people have. It's a beautiful photo, Liam offered like that, erased the last 2 months. You're going viral, Mom added, forcing a smile. Some articles are flattering. Some of them mention you, I said. She nodded, eyes stiff. That's what we came to talk about. We're being misrepresented. No, I said quietly. You're being seen. Silence. Liam cleared his throat. Look, I know we were harsh. Maybe we didn't get it at the time, but we didn't think it would blow up. You mean you didn't think I'd be right? Mom winced, then reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. Cream-colored, familiar texture. I found this in your childhood desk. It's yours. I think you left it behind when you moved out. I read it. I took the envelope slowly. Inside was one of my earliest invitation prototypes, a practice wedding card I'd designed at 17, dreaming of fairy lights and a garden aisle. At the bottom in pencil I had written, "Wherever she is, Grandma Evelyn gets the front row." My throat tightened. You wrote that before you even met Daniel, Mom said. Before you knew where you'd be. I looked up, but I always knew who I wanted there. She nodded, eyes glassy now. We were wrong. You were cruel, I corrected. Liam shoved his hands in his jacket pockets. What now? Now, I said, stepping back inside. I returned a minute later with a second envelope, thinner but deliberate. On the front it read, "For future reference." Inside, a print of the photo, Grandma clapping, petals falling, joy in motion. Below it, I'd handwritten a single line. This is what love looks like when no one's pretending. I handed it to Mom without ceremony. You don't have to hang it up. You just have to look at it sometimes and remember who didn't need convincing. They left quietly. No hugs, no long embraces, just the soft shuffle of expensive shoes down wooden steps. Later that evening, Daniel and I lit a candle beside Grandma's sketch of the treehouse bride. It sat next to the framed photo, the one the world now knew. Do you think she'd be proud, he asked. She is, I said. And now the whole world knows why.